G'day Tigers fans, we have Isaac Issa on the show today, so make sure you tune in to the very end because we make some great points about our team, our future, Lachlan Galvin, all the things. It is an absolute content-filled episode today, so many great talking points and discussion points. But if you're new here, welcome back to NRL Deep Dive. This is your one-stop shop for all things West Tigers, orange, black and white, baby, the best colours in the world. And it would mean the world to me if you like and subscribe to this channel. But before further ado, let's get into it because we have a lot to unpack today with Isaac. I guess let's get right off to it. Lachlan Galvin's probably the biggest one, right? Had that board meeting. Sounds like he's going to be able to go out for release early. Haven't really looked too much into the details. Kind of was waiting for you to jump on because you would probably know way more. But what do you know? What do you know that's unfolded that maybe we don't see or haven't heard yet? There's talk that he might be coming to the doggies, which is going to be great for you guys. Let's start there. What are you thinking? What's going on?
Look, man, the news dropped this morning, and it was just absolutely like it feels like as soon as things felt like they kind of settled down with the whole Lachlan Galvin thing, they just spiked back up. And I know as probably Tigers fans, you probably just like give us just 1 week of no controversy, please. Look, I'm hearing a lot of things, but it's all spiraling all over the place, to be honest. Now, the biggest thing I'm hearing at the moment is that obviously the Tigers and Galvin are currently orchestrating a move to get him out of there ASAP. And the biggest club that's kind of being thrown up at the moment, you already mentioned them, is the Dogs. And so I'm not going to confirm anything because, again, in rugby league, you don't know until you know. But I'm hearing really, really strong whispers that Galvin to the Dogs is a done deal. And I would expect that to be kind of announced in the next couple of weeks. Now, again, nothing set in stone, but from what I'm hearing, it's a done deal. Essentially, he's going to be a Bulldog. Where that leaves the Dogs, I'm hearing maybe Burton to 13. And bringing in a Bailey Hayward in at 9, and then bringing Mitchell Woods through at 7. So that's kind of what I've been hearing on the Dog side of things, and that he's essentially a done deal. I believe potentially a 3-year deal for him at the Dogs. But again, I guess we'll hear over the next kind of few days or weeks as to whether that becomes confirmed. But basically everything on him going to the Eels at the moment has, really quieted down. And so again, we've seen in rugby league before, like sometimes a dark horse springs out of nowhere. We could see him somehow end up at a Roosters or an Eels or even like a Perth Bears, like with one of the expansion sides. So, but at the moment, the strongest thing I'm hearing is him to the Dogs. Now, the reasoning as to why they've now made this decision, I haven't heard anything on. However, as you can see from the past 2 weeks, the Tigers' performances, I think it we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago when I was on about the whole mentality and the premiership mentality that, these winning clubs need to have and how the Tigers bounce back from the whole Lachlan Galvin saga with a win, and it shows their determination and their work ethic and their pride for the club. But and we'll get a little bit deeper when we get into the games that you guys have kind of played. But I think seeing how the Tigers have performed over the last couple of weeks points to potentially the negotiations having already been underway over the last couple of weeks and disrupting the locker room. And that could be potentially pointing to why the Tigers have kind of fallen off a cliff in the past couple of weeks. But yeah, biggest thing at the moment is Lachlan Galvin to the Dogs. Now, I'd expect that to be confirmed in the next few days to weeks. I will say that Gus Gould came out, I believe, last week and on his Twitter and said, expect big news for the Bulldogs in the next few weeks. And so I probably would point to that being Lachlan Galvin to the Dogs.
For sure. Yeah, man. I totally agree, especially the part where you said like the last few weeks, like kind of fallen off that cliff. Things have felt different on our team, and there was just this undeniable thing that we could not put our finger on, but it does always lead back to Lachlan Galvin. And was like, he just wasn't committed. He didn't seem committed. I mean, especially our game against the Storm, like as a whole, our whole team was off, which we'll get into in a little bit. But for him specifically, he just didn't want to take a tackle. He didn't want to make a tackle. He didn't want to pass the ball. Like things just were weird. But But let me ask you this: as a Doggies fan, we threw 6 million at him. He denied it. Him and his manager. What do you expect Doggies to throw at him, money wise? What would you throw at him? What do you realistically think he is worth, given his talent, but also his track record of these last few weeks, but also in the New South Wales Cup?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, there's so many, and the fact that you're able to kind of list so many moving parts to what Lachie Galvin is, just points to how polarizing his signature would be for not just the Dogs but for any club. Now, how he fits into the Dogs, I kind of listed how rumors are how the spine would be listed out. Do I love it? No, not really. The Tigers threw 6 million at him, and his reasoning was supposedly he wants to be at a club where he can develop a little bit further.
Right.
Now, when reports were coming out that Galvin to the Eels were spreading through like wildfire, everyone was like, "Are you really going to develop at the Eels?" The Eels are not doing much better than the Tigers. In fact, they're doing a lot worse than the Tigers. So, but if you're looking at him at the Dogs, at the moment, the Dogs are probably the best place in the NRL, probably even ahead of the Panthers at the moment in regards to becoming, or reaching that star level. Like you got guys like Max King, who's just made it into the Origin side, Stephen Crichton, who won 3 premierships and has somehow gotten better. Matt Burton has become an Elite Six. Kurt Mann is now on the Origin side. You got these guys who've come to the club who have essentially reached heights that no one thought that they would. And so if Galvin's whole stigma is that he wants to become a premiership level half and he wants to develop under a good coach, there's probably no better club in the comp, maybe other than the Melbourne Storm. So I would expect him to be on less money for that fact alone. I'd probably have Galvin around that 900,000, 850 to 900,000
Yeah.
mark if it comes to the Dogs. I can't see him getting over $1 million. I can't see Gus giving him $1 million. And I think the 3-year deal that's kind of been floated around is probably realistic for Galvin. And I think that's also due to his track record. Like he's tainted his reputation a little bit. And if I'm being completely honest as a Dogs fan, the way he's kind of carried himself, or no, not even just carried himself, but the way that he's represented himself through Isaac Moses and the reports that have come out through the Tigers and through the media, doesn't really speak to what the Bulldogs are about right now. The Dogs have passed up on star players like Adam Fanua-Blake, for example, citing that he had attitude problems in negotiations, or, passed up on Eels skipper Mitchell Moses. And Ben Hunt, who, went through a similar thing with the Dragons, like passing up on these guys. If the club is to kind of want to move into, bringing in Lachie Galvin and moving in our star player, Matt Burton, to 13, that's a huge call. And so it wouldn't be for over $1 million. I'd be very surprised if Gus opened up the wallet for that. But I can see him on that around 850 to 900,000 mark on a 3-year deal. And then, obviously potentially room for an extension down the line if he does kind of integrate himself well into this Doggy side.
For sure, absolutely. I mean, when the $6 million stuff came out, I mean, at that time he was performing well. He had a great track record, great reputation, but even then, it was still pushing what I would pay for him, and I was right around that 7 to 900 as well. And with Galvin coming out and like going away, we'd have to replace him, right? So we've got Latu Fainu, however you want to pronounce it, coming through off his thumb injury, which also I guess got pushed out because it's possibly quad or hamstring injury, I heard. So that was really sucky for him, but I'm glad he's rested up, and Benji's saying that he's going to be back after this bye. So that, begs the question, does he go at 6? Does he go at 7? Where does Luai go in that? Should we be putting people like Heath Mason on our starting squad to give depth while Latu kind of integrates in, getting Talon De Silva out and back in the reserve grade for now? So many different moving pieces. What would you do? Where would you put Latu Fainu? Do we bring in someone like Heath Mason, or do we keep like Talon De Silva? Because then we also had like Tony Suka that played an absolutely brilliant game this past weekend. Despite our outcome, he played phenomenally. And we only have a certain amount of space, right? So how would you build out our squad going forward?
Look, I think at the moment, and we kind of touched on it a few weeks ago, as much as the Tigers are on the come up, you want to come up as quick as possible because you never know what can change in rugby league. You got clubs who focus on this real slow burn, and in some cases it works, but then in some cases you've got sides like the Warriors a couple of years ago who sprout out of nowhere, or the Dogs this year, or you've got these sides who come up out of nowhere, and suddenly this slow burn that you've been kind of orchestrating kind of pushes you further out of the 8 and not where you want to go. And so if I'm the Tigers, I'm avoiding that slow burn. You've got a premiership halfback in Jarome Luai. You've got an Origin snub in Terrell May in the front row, and potentially another. You've got 3 Origin snubs in your side.
Right.
And the fact that Adam, and we'll probably touch on it later, but the fact that Adam Dewey's made himself in the blue side, and these 3 haven't, is
Right.
insane. But you've got essentially half your starting lineup should be in Origin, and so if I'm the Tigers, I'm looking at this side and I'm like, look, obviously Galvin's not at the club. That's done. It's dusted. Let's move on. Latu Fainu is your guy, and personally, Latu Fainu is your guy. And while you could bring in like a Heath Mason or the like into your side, I would just be throwing, giving Latu Fainu free reign to do what he needs to do, and allowing him to grow alongside a Jarome Luai. In terms of Talon De Silva, I think that he is your long-term hooker. And I know there's been a lot of reports about him potentially making his way out because of obviously being stuck behind an Appy Coruscant. But I think if I'm the Tigers, especially with, like the Perth Bears and the PNG side coming through, you need to make Talon De Silva feel wanted at this club. And so you need to be giving him as many minutes as possible, and finding a way to kind of to convince him that he will be the starting 9 within the next few years. So if I'm the Tigers, I'm not changing too much. I'm slotting Latu Fainu right in, and I'm essentially saying goodbye to Lachlan Galvin, regardless of if he leaves now or not. I'm dropping him to Cup, and that's not in any way to be petty or bitter, but unfortunately,
Right.
he's brought a really a tough situation onto the club. And he's got to have to suffer the consequences, at least for now. And Galvin will be fine. He's going to be making $1 million wherever he goes, so he'll be just fine. If I'm the Tigers, I'm like, you know what, this kid's brought a lot of heat on us as a club when we're meant to be coming up. Whereas Latu Fainu has just been chipping away in New South Wales Cup. I'm giving him his opportunity, and I'm telling him the number 6 jersey is yours until the end of the season. Do what you need to, and then I would reevaluate after the season.
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, Gavin definitely has made his point that, hey, don't want to be here any longer. And I think Benji and Rich are at a point, and the team is like, all right, it's time to move on. It's time to continue building what we are building. And unfortunately, Galvin doesn't want to be part of it. That's on him, right? So we've got our half sorted. We've got Luai. We have Latu Fainu coming through. We have great depth to Talon De Silva in our hooker replacing Api Coruscant. Our biggest thing, I mean, we have powerhouses like Royce Hunt, Tony Suka, and of course Terrell May. But at what point do we kind of suffer not having the depth, right? And there's rumors of people like Kai Pearce-Paul coming over, and then even in our backline, in our center, Taylor May. Have you kind of heard any development around Kai Pearce-Paul coming over? That kind of got really heated this past week and then died off the last few days. And then Taylor May came out and did that NBN interview, or Fox or whatever it was. And it's like, I'm ready to come back, would love to play with my brother. That would be a dream come true. Do you know anything else about any of that?
The stronger whispers that I've heard are about Kai Pearce-Paul, not Taylor May. So, in terms of the Kai Pearce-Paul, I believe that if you were to come to the club, it would be from 2026. However, that was kind of before this whole Lachlan Galvin thing sprouted back up this morning, and so I think if the club is looking to offload a Lachlan Galvin, you do have room to bring in Kai Pearce-Paul ASAP. Now, I don't know what the Knights' plans are moving forward. If they are willing to let him go this year, there hasn't really been much around that. And I think the reason it's kind of been a little bit radio silence over the last few days is because the Tigers are trying to kind of work out this situation behind the scenes in terms of what's going to happen with Galvin before they kind of make their feelings known about who they want to bring in. I've also been hearing a lot about Adam Reynolds to
Me too,
Tigers.
bro. Yeah.
So I don't know if that is also look, and personally, I don't love that move for the Tigers. I think that you need to kind of focus on what you've got at the moment. But that's honestly been the strongest mail at the moment. It's Adam Reynolds on a 2-year deal, and it's Kai Pearce-Paul from next year as well. I'm not sure how long the length of the deal. I'd imagine about 3 years, but those are the two guys that I've heard a lot about. Now, in terms of Taylor May, I haven't heard much on him. However, he's probably if I'm going to bet money on who would be at the Tigers first out of those three, it would be Taylor May, just because of the connection with his brother. And if I'm the Tigers, like Taylor May was absolutely, it was probably for a time he was the best outside back at the Panthers, and he was the youngest as well. Like he is. As impressive as Terrell May is, I actually view Taylor May as the most talented out of the three May brothers.
Right.
So if I'm a betting man, I'd probably put my money on Taylor May. However, the strongest I've heard is on Kai Pearce-Paul from next year, and Adam Reynolds from next year as well.
For sure, yeah. The Adam Reynolds one kind of threw me for a loop. I love like the way he plays. I love what he used to do back in the day when I believe he was at the Rabbitohs, and like he was just a phenomenal guy. My biggest concern was obviously his age. Same thing with Api Korosai. So the
Yeah.
fact that he could pull out that 70-meter sprint the other night was just absolutely amazing. But yeah, I don't know. I think my community is about 50-50 on Adam Reynolds. I think it would be great to have him come in and kind of like lead Jarome Luai or even Latu Fainu and kind of give them some direction, but also the whole team because we've got some amazing people on our team. I like you said, one of the deadliest spines in the comp right now. It's just a matter of our chemistry and like some direction. And I think if we can get that down, that'd be huge. And I don't see why not that Adam Reynolds couldn't do that, right? So
Yep.
really intrigued to see what comes of that, but. Yeah, I think we just got to get through all this crap with all this Lachlan Galvin stuff, all this noise, and then
Mhm.
throw on State of Origin and all the stuff that came with that. Not one
Yeah.
Tiger was picked for like
Yeah.
the main blue jersey, right? And that to
Yeah.
me was crazy. We thought
Yeah.
Terrell May was going to be there. Jarome Luai definitely should have been there. Api Korosai could have been there. I mean, even like Sanua Taruva could have been on that.
Yeah.
Like there was so many people that could have been on that team that weren't, and then we have people like Adam Dewey just randomly rocking up at the hotel on the blue squad. It's just like, what is going on? Like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It begs the question, like, why weren't we picked? We have the potential, we have the talent. Yeah, can you kind of speak to that a little bit? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Absolutely. Look, rugby league, like in rugby league, talk moves around really fast, and again, and we'll get into it, but the last 2 weeks for the Tigers, you've seen the side absolutely dismantled, and I got a few notes written down about how exactly they were dismantled in those past few
Yeah, get
games,
into
but
it.
like you'll see during like through both matches, more notably the Storm game, but for the entirety of the Storm match and for the first half of the Rabbitohs match, all the points scored against the Tigers were through the middle. Not one was on the edge, and that's not a talent thing. That's not a that's purely attitude and mentality. And I think that's because there's a lot going on behind the scenes at the Tigers right now that has soured this locker room and soured everyone's kind of determination and mentality, which has led to on-field, poor performances, and that's why points are being scored through the middle for the Tigers. And honestly, like looking at both matches, it's probably some of the worst defense I've seen in years, and some of the worst I've seen from the Tigers in years, which says a lot because the Tigers are
Yeah.
really good. And so I think that talk moves around fast in this league behind the scenes, and I think a lot has been going on behind the scenes. Between Lachlan Galvin wanting to leave, the Dogs potentially bringing him in. Like I said, Gus reported last week that a lot like some exciting news is coming for the Dogs over the next few weeks. The whole Kai Pearce-Paul thing and the Adam Reynolds thing. There's too much going on behind the scenes for a essentially rookie coach in Benji Marshall. Shane Richo, who's obviously very outspoken, and like you've got so much going on behind the scenes. I think a guy like Laurie Daly has looked at that and been like, no, we don't need that in our camp. Whether that's a Terrell May coming in, and we love Terrell May, but I think we can all agree sometimes he maybe says the wrong thing.
Yep.
Like we look at, like his live stream the other day where, potentially that also made things a little bit worse for his
Yeah.
situation. And you've got a guy like, Jarome Luai, who again is extremely polarizing. He's obviously gone to another level with his leadership this year, but I think Laurie Daly and the Blues administration, which obviously includes like Craig Bellamy, who's very no nonsense. And I think that they've looked at this Tiger situation, and unfortunately, because of all this drama going around, they've looked at that and been like, we don't need that in our camp. We need to focus on winning this Origin match, which really sucks for Tigers
Yeah.
and Tigers fans because, Benji Marshall, Shane Richardson, and the whole Tigers administration has put so much work into bringing this club to a new era. And you've got situations like this that are like completely unavoidable, at least from what we know, completely unavoidable, that has tainted the Origin hopes of star players who are really trying to bring the Tigers to another place. And so if I'm a Tigers fan, I'm super disappointed in how this has played out, but I think it has a lot more to do with off-field drama than on-field performances.
Definitely, man. And yeah, I mean, that does not add anything great to the Lachie Galvin kind of situation and
Yeah.
kind of his reputation going forward, right? So yeah, it just begs the question, like, why would someone want to sign him other than pure talent, right? So yeah, man, it is super disheartening the fact that we didn't get picked to do anything to do with Origin other than Adam Dewey, which I mean, good on him for like getting out there and doing it, but at the same time, it's also like kind of degrading that, our player went to like New South, like it's just wild. It's mind boggling to me and to my community. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's the last few games have definitely been tough to digest as a Tigers fan. And like you said, there has been no hope, there has been no intensity, there's been no effort, especially in that Storm game. And that was across the board. And of course, we also had our weak link with Charlie Staines, with Stafford Toa out, and then Brent Naden in. And we also saw them attacking our right edge, which was right there, and which also happened to be Lachie Galvin's side. So I think with him leaving and Latu coming in and letting him and Luai cook, it's going to be absolutely awesome, especially with Jarrell Skelton coming back, Stafford Toa's back. Have you heard anything about Fainu Pole coming back after his injury and possibly Samuel Fainu after his knee injury this past game?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on in regards to if they're like what their situation is at the moment. But if I'm the Tigers, like, and we kind of touched on it before in terms of depth and stuff. Like these are two integral parts of your forward pack. And if I'm the Tigers, like, I'm obviously, you don't want to rush guys back, and you don't want to, like, you can't risk any further disruption to your side. And you see it, and it's another thing that, again, it points to what the good sides do really well and what the bad sides do really poorly. And it's knowing when to kind of bring these guys back into your side, and when to kind of leave them out. And so if I'm the Tigers, I'm not rushing either of them back in. Again, I haven't heard of whether, what their kind of timeline is at the moment. But if I'm the Tigers, I'm showing my young guns, coming through the ranks, or my bench guys, like even guys like Royce Hunt, who's your 16th, 17th man. Like you're showing them this level of faith that, nope, you're sweet, you can do a job, you can do it for us. And whether they do or not, it's building confidence in that side and showing that you don't just rely on these star players to get you through your matches. And I think that's a really underrated thing that a lot of sides, and obviously as a Dogs fan, I point to the Bulldogs because we've obviously had half our forward pack decimated over this year, and you had these young guys like Leapoy Hopai, Harry Hayes, like Luke Smith, like all these young guys come in and do a job. And you want to build that kind of mentality, not only through your first grade squad, but through your entire club. And so if I'm the Tigers, that's something I'm really, really focusing on. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I said, I believe I do see the Tigers making eighth this year. Um, while there's still an opportunity for that this season, I'm probably pushing a little bit further away from that now and focusing more on building a strong culture. And so when you got guys like Bole and Fainu out of your side, I'm not rushing them back in. I'm focusing on bringing these young guys up and bringing these guys into the side, and hoping we win matches off the back of that. Because at the end of the day, I think it would be really important for the Tigers to make the eighth this year, and you want to win as many games as possible, but not to the detriment of what your team chemistry looks like and your players' health, essentially.
For sure, absolutely, couldn't agree more. Did you watch the Rabbitohs game versus Tigers this
Yeah,
past weekend? What did you
yeah,
think of Benji's call of putting Royce Hunt on the bench? I'm super intrigued. I was all for it. I've been saying it
yeah.
for weeks that Royce Hunt is one of those guys that brings the tone and energy and the rhythm, especially in a time like this when we don't have much of that, just with all the
Mm,
noise going on. And so when he came out, he put on those big runs, those big hit ups. He made great tackles, gassed out the
yeah.
defense. To me, that was phenomenal. He was on for about 15, 20. He hopped off and came back in second half. Do you think that's a tactic that we should be keeping going forward? What do you think? Just because he is such a big body and he knows how to bring heat.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that in maximizing the impact of a player like Royce Hunt it's really insightful from Benji Marshall, and I actually agree with you completely. He reminds me a lot, obviously to a lesser degree, but he reminds me a lot of a Spencer Leniu,
Mm.
in bringing that impact and that punch to your side, especially when you need it. Now, Royce Hunt is not going to come on and give you 150 200 meters. Like he's not going to come on and get through 80 minutes worth of work. He's not a Terrell May, you know what I mean? He's not a slow burn. He
Hmm.
comes out hard and fast. You get 15 to 25 minutes out of him and you're done. And while a lot of people kind of look at that and they're like, oh, look, I think you need to move in the direction of an 80-minute player, or you need to kind of steer away from that kind of player in your side. I think that that's kind of essentially what can turn a game around. And one of his first run, actually, I think it was his first run where he came off the back fence.
Yeah.
He absolutely just like belted himself into the Rabbitohs defensive line. Like it's got like, and you would have seen he actually didn't make many post contact meters off that, but it just lifted the side up and kind of set the tone for the intensity of the match. And while I don't think that intensity stayed, I don't think that's because of a guy like Royce Hunt. I think it's just because, like I said, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But in saying that, the scramble from the Tigers and the Rabbitohs match opposed to the Storm match was night and day. So you can definitely look at the intensity and the impact of a guy like Royce Hunt, and view that it's a really underrated factor of what makes this Tigers outfit click in attack and in defense. So no, I definitely think it was a strategic move from Benji Marshall, and I think it was a successful one.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And like you said, it was night and day from the Storm. And although we lost against the Rabbitohs, we had so much we could be proud about. Like the fact that we bounced
Absolutely.
back from that 64-0 loss to this, where, we almost had it at the end there. And Lachlan Galvin went for that try. We were
Mm,
scrambling, trying to make something happen. That second half, we turned up the heat. Things were just
mm,
starting. I remember after we scored that try after Appy and we got the ball from kickoff, we turned it up. We made like 70-meter gain
mm.
set, and I was like, "Holy crap! Where has
Yeah.
this been all season?" I was like, things are just starting to click every now and then. We're getting glimpses, so it makes me super excited. My
Mm,
biggest concern is though, is will we get performances like that from Uppy like going forward?
yeah.
Obviously there's talk of him possibly retiring here in the next few years just with age, and he is seasoned. He's a veteran. He's played footy for a long time. And that makes room for someone like Talon De Silva to come through. But the fact that he can be unpredictable like that makes me super stoked that, hey, he still has that burst and energy. But it also solidifies like your statement of saying like we need to give Talon De Silva some promise, right?
Yeah.
So what were some of the key moments in the Rabbitohs game and some of the key plays and players to you that we should be super proud of as a club and as a fan base?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think my biggest thing, the biggest highlight of that match wasn't actually a try, even though happy step on Latrell Mitchell. Can I
Oh,
just say that was
oh.
fire? That was classic Appy Coruscant, and I thought that was just that was awesome. That was probably one of the best highlights in the match. But I think the most important play of the match, I believe it was in the first half. I think it was Isaiah Tass. I might be mistaken, but I think Isaiah Tass made a break through the line
Mhm.
on the left edge, and he was streaming across the field, and you saw Jarome Luai just bolting towards him and nailing him just before he reached the try line, which just pure effort. And like in 9 times out of 10, Isaiah Tass has gone. He scores that try. To see your captain step up and just launch himself, from across the field and make a try saver like that. that's what your side needs. That's something that's super underrated in every single NRL side. If your skipper is not, and it's similar to like a Stephen Crichton, I believe last week or the week before, he did a similar thing. And to see, Jarome, Luai amidst everything that's been kind of going on with the Tigers, and so many reasons for the Tigers to just hang their heads and just give up in that situation. To see your skipper just soaring across the field and making that try saver, I think that was probably the most important part of the match. And again, obviously the side lost, but I think that Benji Marshall can take a lot more out of this match than obviously the Storm match. Because seeing your skipper kind of make a play like that, and then also seeing the rest of the squad scramble like they did for the entire 80 minutes, I think that was really important for the Tigers.
Definitely, man. Definitely. And now looking forward, finally, we have our bye this week, which is great, getting 2 points on the board. We're going up against our premiership winning team, which is the North Queensland Cowboys after that. They're making some wild moves at their halves, with the young fellas coming through, the seasoned guys coming out that's winning games. To me, I'm like, we need to capitalize on that, right? So, do you think we have what it takes to win against North Queensland Cowboys? And should we be capitalizing on this opportunity in their halves, in their I don't want to even say they have a chemistry yet because it's only going to be like the second game playing together. What are your thoughts on that? And how do we, capitalize on that and win from that?
Yeah, look, personally, I have no idea what's going on in North Queensland. I'm super confused as to what they're doing over there.
Me too.
It's I've and the funny thing about North Queensland is, and I don't know if it's because like the Sydney clubs just get more buzz or like there's a lot more people involved in those clubs, but I'm hearing very little about what's actually going on behind the scenes in North Queensland. So they just kind of make these moves, and it's just like, oh, okay. So, it's definitely something that I think the Tigers need to capitalize on. Obviously you got Purdue in the halves now. I don't know how many of their players will be backing up from Origin. But obviously they do have a lot of Origin players in their squad. So regardless, I think the Tigers need to capitalize on this opportunity. I think they will, coming fresh off the bye. Having Jarome, Luai, Terrell May, to a lesser degree, Appy Coruscant, all kind of probably a little bit annoyed that they didn't make the Blues side or weren't even brought in as an 18th, 19th, or 20th man.
Yeah.
And again, look, as a Tigers fan and me as someone who, obviously I support the Lebanon international team. I love Adam Dewey. But I have no idea why he's the 18th man for the Blues at the moment. Not because he's not talented enough, but because there's about 3 guys in his side who probably should have gotten that over him.
Right. Right.
And so I hope he kills it for the Blues, but I can't see why he was picked over these other guys in the Tigers outfit if you were going to pick a Tiger. So I think those 3 guys are probably looking at that, and they're probably a little bit annoyed. They've probably got a point to prove. And if, the effort, because obviously Coruscant, Terrell May, and Jarome, Luai, probably all 3 of them had their best games of the year against the Rabbitohs over the weekend. Now, if that was a Blues audition, then next week's game is a Blues revenge game. And so I definitely think that all 3 of them are going to come out with a fire lit under them. And honestly, I think the Tigers win. I think they win well. I can't see a world where those 3 guys come out and kind of, half-ass the game and don't put in 110% effort. So I think all 3 of those guys lift your side up. As you mentioned before, you've got these guys coming back, Stafford Toa, Jarrell Skelton. You've got these guys coming back into your side, and you potentially have, I'm not sure how the schedule works out, but potentially Adam Dewey in your side as well, who will have that Blues experience and probably have a little ego boost in a sense and a little bit more confidence on the field, which is always a good thing. And I think that, like me personally as a Dogs fan, having Matt Burton kind of get that, experience as an 18th man always helped him coming back to the Dogs side. So, no, I definitely think that all areas of your side are clicking. My only question mark is Lachlan Galvin at the moment and what that's going to kind of look like over the next couple of weeks. But if I'm the Tigers, I'm getting him out of there as soon as possible. And I am looking to, what your halves combination kind of looks like moving forward.
For sure, man. Absolutely hit the nail on the head and put the nail in the coffin right there. What a way to end it out. That is the big question for all of us Tigers fans is what the heck happens with Galvin and how do we move forward? Is it Latu Fainu? Is it someone else? And that's all going to be revealed over the next crazy few weeks. And I'm pumped. I honestly am pumped. But thanks for jumping on, man. Greatly appreciate it. How can people find you, contact you? What are some of the handles that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, the you probably the main thing that and a lot of people will kind of see me on is on Instagram. So you can find me at Isaac Issa _ journalist. And I basically publish all my news pieces for Zero Tackle over there. If you're keen on reading some full length articles, head over to zerotackle.com.au, and I basically chat everything footy, every club in the NRL, and all different opinion pieces about the trending topics as well. So head over to the Instagram, head over to zerotackle.com. Also doing a lot of work at the ABC at the moment as well. And you can check out all the latest updates over on my social media. And if not, you'll probably see me on here again. I love coming on here and chatting
Yeah,
with
yeah.
you. So yeah, that's basically everything from me.
Beautiful. Appreciate it, mate. Love having you on. We'll definitely have you on more often. We should do something with the when the doggies versus the Tigers. Maybe I can
Absolutely.
wear a doggies jersey, you wear a Tigers jersey. We'll figure something out. But yeah,
Absolutely.
mate, I'll be sure to drop your stuff in the description. So fans, make sure you drop down in there. Follow him on all of his socials because he knows what he's talking about and he writes some phenomenal pieces. So thanks for chatting with us, mate. Greatly appreciate you. Take it easy.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. See ya.